Imagine a world before memory, a world untouched by cities, borders, or language, just wind, dust, and the faint heartbeat of survival. 70,000 years ago, Earth trembled. In the heart of what we now call Indonesia, Mount Toba erupted, not as a mountain but as a monster. It was one of the most violent natural events in the history of our planet. A supervolcano explosion so vast that it nearly erased the spark of humanity. The eruption unleashed billions of tons of ash into the sky. Within hours, day turned to night. The sun disappeared behind a curtain of darkness. For weeks, the sky burned red. For years, the world froze. Scientists call it the Toba catastrophe, a global volcanic winter that changed the fate of life itself. Temperatures plunged, forests withered, and oceans cooled. Animals starved, and food chains collapsed. But amid this chaos, something extraordinary happened. Humanity survived. Barely. Genetic evidence suggests that the human population, once spread across Africa and Asia, was reduced to just a few thousand survivors. Maybe 2,000, maybe fewer. Every person alive today might trace their ancestry back to those few who refused to die. Imagine that. Every breath you take, every word you speak, echoes the resilience of those ancient souls who stood against the end of the world. They endured a sky without light, a land without food, a future without promise, and yet they lived. This is not the story of how humanity began, but how it almost ended before it began. As the ash settled and the first rays of sunlight returned, the survivors looked up at a wounded sky. They did not yet know that from their struggle would rise language, art, civilization, and the modern world itself. This is the forgotten dawn, the moment when the world nearly lost us and we found ourselves instead. At first, it was nothing more than a whisper beneath the ground, a trembling sigh of the earth, barely noticeable, almost gentle. But then another tremor followed, and another, until the soil itself began to hum, like a drumbeat from the planet's heart. Across the dense rainforests of ancient Sumatra, animals grew restless. Elephants trumpeted in panic, abandoning watering holes. Monkeys screamed and vanished into the canopy. Flocks of birds fled toward the horizon, never to return. The air thickened with tension, heavy and unmoving. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then came the roar, a sound beyond description, a scream from the Earth's core. A flash of light, pure and blinding, split the morning sky open. The ground cracked like shattered glass. And from the wound of the planet, a column of fire erupted, bright as a second sun, rising 40 kilometers into the heavens. The mountain had awakened. Mount Toba had begun its fury. The blast was beyond human comprehension. In a single moment, 2,800 cubic kilometers of molten rock and ash exploded outward, obliterating everything within hundreds of miles. Forests vaporized, rivers boiled, the air itself caught fire. Sound waves circled the earth several times, the greatest eruption in the last 2 million years. Those who witnessed it, if any survived, would have seen the sky itself collapse. The roar turned into thunder that lasted for hours. The day became night, and the night became endless. Within minutes, Sumatra vanished beneath flame and dust. Within hours, ash blotted out the sun. Within days, the world was cloaked in shadow. Lightning danced silently inside monstrous clouds of ash. The sky, once blue and infinite, turned into a swirling ocean of darkness. Volcanic dust rode the jet streams, wrapping the planet in a deathly shroud. Temperatures plummeted. Rain turned acidic. Oceans cooled to the color of lead. Forests fell silent. Life retreated. The Toba eruption was not just a natural event. It was a reset button for the planet. Months passed, then years. The world became unrecognizable, a wasteland of ash and silence. The air smelled of sulfur, wet stone, and death. Ash fell like snow, gray and soft yet deadly. Every breath carried poison. Every drop of rain burned the skin. The sun was gone. Only a dull orange glow remained, the ghost of daylight. Across Africa and Asia, small bands of humans fought to stay alive. They had no cities, no language carved in stone, no shelter from the cold. They were wanderers, fragile, forgotten. At night, they gathered around flickering fires, the only light in a world of shadows. They whispered stories to their children, their breath visible in the freezing air. The firelight reflected in their eyes, eyes that had seen the end of the world. Each dawn looked the same, gray, silent, hopeless. Each dusk the same darkness returned, food was scarce. The herds were gone. The trees bore no fruit. Children cried until their voices disappeared into the wind. The elders, gaunt and weary, gave their portions to the young. Some families vanished overnight, swallowed by hunger, by cold, by despair. But not all hope was lost. Along the coasts, where the wind was softer and fish still lived, some survived. They built shelters from driftwood and animal hides. They learned to keep fire alive, carrying embers across miles of frozen terrain. Within these small pockets of life, something profound happened. Humans began to change. They started to cooperate, to share, to mourn together. When someone died, they buried them gently, not for survival, but for love. It was the first whisper of compassion, the first glimpse of humanity. From pain came unity. From darkness came light. The darkness lasted decades. Entire generations lived and died beneath the shadow of Toba. But out of this long night emerged something extraordinary. Humans began to remember. They carved patterns into stone, spirals, lines, symbols that meant something only to them. They painted caves with images of the world before the fire. Blue skies, green forests, golden beasts. In the midst of extinction, they created art. In the face of death, they found meaning. Perhaps it was here, in the cold ashes of Toba, that we first became truly human. The day the sky turned black was not the end. It was the beginning, the crucible from which our spirit was forged. And thousands of centuries later, we, the children of that darkness, still carry its memory. In our fears, our stories, and in our unyielding will to survive. It's strange to think that every human alive today, every child, every nation, every belief may descend from just a few thousand survivors. When scientists began to decode the human genome, they found something extraordinary, a pattern of uniformity that should not exist if our ancestors had always been numerous. Across continents, from Africa to Asia, the genetic differences between populations were too small. It was as if humanity had passed through a bottleneck, a narrow passage where only a few could slip through. This discovery led to one haunting question. What if there was a time when humanity nearly disappeared, and only a few survived to rebuild everything? The numbers that tell the story geneticists estimate that around 70,000 to 75,000 years ago, our species went through a population crash. From possibly tens of thousands of individuals, only about 2,000, 5,000 survived. Some models even suggest it could have dropped to as few as 1,000. Imagine the entire human race reduced to a small tribe, scattered and frightened, surrounded by a dying world. Each of them carried something priceless, their DNA. And within that DNA, the future of humanity. How do we know? In Africa, genetic diversity among humans is the highest on Earth. This means the survivors most likely lived there, maybe in small, isolated pockets near rivers or forests that escaped the volcanic winter. When scientists analyzed mitochondrial DNA, the genetic code passed from mothers to children, they found evidence of what they call mitochondrial Eve, not one woman, but rather a symbolic ancestor, representing the small group of women whose lineage survived when many others perished. Every one of us, regardless of race or nationality, can trace our mitochondrial DNA back to this narrow window of human survival. It's a thread of continuity, thin, fragile, but unbroken. A world reborn from ash those survivors faced impossible odds. The world they knew was gone. Animals extinct, plants withered, the sky dim. But still, they adapted. They moved along the coasts, learning to fish and gather shellfish. They discovered new tools, new ways to hunt. They taught their children how to survive in a wounded world. Slowly, the numbers began to grow again. And as the earth healed, so did humanity. From the ashes of extinction, humanity was reborn, fragile yet determined. Our species had crossed through fire and darkness, carrying within us the memory of near oblivion. Long before writing, before kings and kingdoms, before the first stone was carved, humans told stories. And hidden within those stories are echoes of something terrible that once happened to us all. When archaeologists and historians searched the ancient world, they noticed something extraordinary. Across nearly every culture, from Africa to Mesopotamia, from India to China, from the Americas to Oceania, there are legends describing a global catastrophe. Stories of fire, darkness, and oceans swallowing the land. Stories of survival and rebirth. The Great Flood, humanity's shared memory.
Long ago,
the most familiar of all is the tale of the Great
remade,
Flood.
And from the
story of
ashes
Noah's
the
Ark
old,
is well known,
new stories
but it is
were
only
born.
one version among many. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Sumerians spoke of Ziusudra, the man saved
Myths
by the
across
gods.
the world.
In India, the Vedas tell of Manu, rescued by the god Vishnu in the form of a fish. In China, Nuwa repaired the sky after floods destroyed the world.
And the
In the Americas, the Mayans remembered the previous world, drowned and consumed by darkness. Different continents, different languages, yet all remember the same event. A world destroyed and a few chosen survivors. Could this be coincidence? Or is it the oldest memory our species has ever carried? Ash and darkness, the echo of Toba.
The lost worlds
Scientists
of the
believe these
Americas.
myths may be distant memories of the Toba supereruption, the volcanic winter that nearly wiped humanity out.
The sky turned black.
When Toba exploded
The sun was
70,000
gone.
years ago, ash covered the sky for years.
Turned to mud.
Sunlight faded, crops died, temperatures plummeted,
When the
and the
earth
rain when it
shook
turned black.
and the sea boiled,
In oral traditions across
only
Asia
the
and
humble
Africa,
survived.
people speak of a time when the sky went dark and the earth burned. In Sumatra, where Toba lies, an ancient legend says, when the earth shook and the sea boiled, only the humble survived.
The convergence
These
of
may
myth
not just be
and
myths,
science
they may be
reveals
memories,
powerful truths.
passed down through tens of thousands of years, encoded not in writing but in stories, myth as memory. When science meets legend for centuries, scholars dismissed myths as fantasy.
Welcome
But modern
to the
science tells a
genetic
different story.
bottleneck.
When geologists studied global flood layers, they discovered evidence of massive deluges at the end of the last ice age. When geneticists and anthropologists traced humanity's bottleneck, they found a timeline that matches perfectly. Around 70,000 years ago, the myths, it seems, were never wrong. They were simply
And
ancient
these
reports
stories
told in the
became
only
our
way our
maps of
ancestors
memory,
could. Perhaps
guiding
myths
us
are
through
not
the
just stories,
ages.
but the way humanity remembers what science has forgotten. Collective memory, the deep mind of humanity, psychologists call it collective memory. The idea that
Ancient
groups of people
memory.
preserve emotions, fears and experiences through
Carved in
generations,
stone.
rituals and even genetics. Our instinctive fear of thunder, darkness and earthquakes might be echoes of the trauma our ancestors endured. When we flinch at lightning, when our hearts race at the sound of distant thunder, we might be hearing the voice of our ancestors whispering through time. Symbols of survival across ancient civilizations, symbols of fire, light, and the returning sun appear again and again. In Egypt, the god Ra rises each morning to defeat the darkness. In Greece, Prometheus steals fire to give hope to mankind. Among the Inca, Inti, the sun god, is worshipped as the father of all life. Perhaps these myths were more than metaphors.
Symbols of
Perhaps
light.
they were celebrations of survival, the moment the sun returned after the long winter of ash. Music rises,
The
hopeful,
language of
light
myth.
emerging from darkness. When the sun returned, humanity was reborn. Myths became our first history
The
books.
geological evidence
And in their
shows
symbols,
a
the
sudden,
survivors spoke
massive
to us
collapse,
across time.
triggering an immense wave that reshaped
From
the
ashes,
entire.
we were born again. The world after Toba was unrecognizable. Forests were gone, skies dimmed, oceans cooled. The earth had fallen silent, as if holding its breath after screaming for centuries. But deep in Africa's heart, along the shores of Lake Malawi and in the shadows of the Great Rift Valley, small bands of humans still moved, quietly, stubbornly, carrying with them the last spark of the human flame. They didn't know they were the last of their kind. They only knew hunger, fear, and the desperate pull to survive another day. For thousands of years, humanity was reduced to mere whispers on the wind. No writing, no history, no glory, and only instinct and memory. Yet within that silence, something extraordinary began to stir. When survival was all that remained, the human mind began to reach beyond it. They looked to the stars not just as light in the darkness, but as symbols of something greater, something eternal. They began to bury their dead gently with flowers, pigments, and tools. They painted on cave walls the stories of the hunt, the storms, and the spirits they believed guided them. In those ancient rituals, meaning was born, and that meaning became the seed of everything that followed. As generations passed, humans adapted with astonishing resilience. Their brains grew sharper, their language more complex, their curiosity insatiable. They spread again, across rivers, mountains, and seas, from Africa to Arabia, from the frozen steppes to the islands of the Pacific. Each migration, each footstep was a declaration. We will not vanish. With time, we learned to plant, to build, to dream. We created gods and stories, reflections of our hopes, our fears, our longing for purpose. Fire became our companion, stone our memory, and imagination our most powerful weapon. Civilization did not arise in one place. It erupted like a new dawn across the world. In Mesopotamia, humans tamed the rivers. In the Nile Valley, they built monuments to eternity. In the Indus, they learned to plan. In the Andes, they touched the sky. And in every heart from then until now, the same question echoed: who are we? Where did we come from? And why did we survive when others did not? Even today, we still carry the genetic scars of that ancient winter. The proof that every person alive descends from those few who refused to give up. Every heartbeat you hear now is a rhythm born 70,000 years ago, a song of survival, a whisper from the ancestors who once stood on the edge of extinction and chose to fight. We survived because we remembered.
An outline.
We endured because we dreamed,
and
and that dream continues. It lives in every story told by the fire, every child who looks up at the night sky, every scientist who wonders how it all began. We are the descendants of a miracle, a species that should have perished, but instead learned to imagine tomorrow. Our history isn't just written in books or carved in stone. It's hidden in our DNA, in the warmth of our hands, in the quiet courage of those who refuse to fade into darkness. And that is where the hidden history begins. Among the forgotten dawns, the silenced voices, and the secrets buried beneath the dust of time. Because every flame, no matter how faint, leaves a trace. And it is our duty to find it, to tell it, and to remember that even in the coldest ages, humanity never truly died. This is the hidden history, where we resurrect the lost stories, the unseen struggles, and the timeless will of those who made us who we are.